Hello, friends, and welcome to our breakdown of UFC 310 live this Saturday night from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Pantoja versus Asakura headlines what is the final pay-per-view of this year, and I'm very excited for this fight card. It feels like we are really finishing strong here with a great slate of fights, and hopefully we can take advantage of the betting here on this card as well. So be sure to check out our full write-up with predictions for this event over on Dine Sports this Saturday morning. But joining me as always, my brother Nick. Thanks always for dissecting these fights with me. How are you feeling ahead of this event?
Yeah, man. Pretty fun card, top to bottom, honestly. A lot of really good matchups, fun matchups, some spots we can definitely bet. Kaya Sakura getting the rare title shot in his promotional debut. This has only happened a few times before. Joe Soto, who came in as a late replacement to fight for a title once upon a time. Gilbert Melendez. Frank Trigg had the opportunity, but it was his second or third stint in the USC, and the only other true guy to do it, who was actually booked, was Hayato Sakurai, another Japanese fighter. And I think that was his only fight in the UFC. So definitely historical card. Not necessarily what they wanted. We were supposed to have Bilal Muhammad here against Shavkat Rakhmonov. Really fun matchup, though. Two undefeated fighters, combined records 33 and 0. This is the biggest undefeated matchup in the UFC since Israel Adesanya took on Paulo Costa, and they were both undefeated for the titles. So, really fun card, a lot of name value, a lot of really violent scraps on paper. So definitely looking forward to breaking it down with you.
All right, well, let's get into it. Starting, of course, with the flyweight main event. Alexandre Pantoja, the minus 250 betting favorite, looking for his next title defense here against Kai Asakura. Yeah, so it was a 16 fight stint in Risen for Asakura. Honestly, very solid level of competition over the years there. Going 1-1 against Kyoji Horiguchi, 1-1 against Manel Cape. Obviously, kind of a split bag. We've seen Asakura knocked out before. And a lot of those fights also taking place at 135 pounds. You will notice him being considerably bigger than Pantoja. I'm interested to see how this cut down to 125 goes here, as well as the fact that Sakura has to kind of adjust his rule set moving to the UFC. Again, he's a professional, career fighter. I don't think it'll be too much to adapt, but obviously can't throw those soccer kicks or knees to grounded opponents that he used to great success over in Risen. I mean, he's a great striker. He's very good in top position in his fights. Not really sure he'll have too much, grappling on his mind here, approaching the champion in Pantoja, who's just such a backpack, somebody who could just suck the life out of you on the mat. If Asakura is to engage on the mat, he could get into top position, a position where he is able to rain some blows on Pantoja, but it's going to be dangerous playing in that guard for very long. I would also say that Pantoja's chin is going to be a big factor in this fight. Obviously, Granite able to take a punch. The title run we've seen out of Pantoja has honestly been extremely impressive to me. His hands are starting to get better, and regardless of how the fight's going, Pantoja always seems to find a second wind, fight through those tough positions, and again, just burn a lot of minutes off the clock, just backpacking his opponents, grappling, and dominating those guys on the mat. He's 9-0 against the current flyweight top 10. That's extremely impressive. I really think he should be the favorite in this matchup, and while Asakura could provide some problems for him, Pantoja a bit of a slow starter, perhaps getting caught in an early exchange or two here. I think ultimately he will prevail. He should be able to defend his title, and I would look at perhaps like an over 1.5 type bet in this fight as well, just sort of a feeling out process here early. But eventually, I do see Pantoja getting the better of Asakura, whether by decision or perhaps a late submission.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Asakura definitely a talented fighter. I don't really know that he should be coming in here and getting this title shot necessarily. I mean, I don't know. The flyweight division's very deep. I guess they're kind of looking for bodies at the very top of it, which is ridiculous that they cut Makayev. But that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, you kind of talked through Asakura's resume. Rise is definitely one of the better promotions that isn't the UFC. It's taken on a really solid level of opponent, but you also touched on the key point for him. A lot of those fights coming at bantamweight. So cutting down a weight class here, he is going to be big. I've seen a lot of media of him this week. He looks to be in excellent shape. And the one thing he's really going to carry down at flyweight is that power. That is his path to victory here. Keep this fight standing as much as possible, trying to find Pantoja's chin. The issue is Pantoja's chin is as good as anyone's in the entire division. I don't believe he's ever been flat knocked out. Yeah, no losses via knockout. All of Pantoja's losses come via decision. So if he's not going to find that knockout, I don't think he's going to be the minute winner here. Pantoja, good grappler, coming off on an Asakura fight against a decent fighter in Juan Archuleta, but also a fighter who's getting up there in age, who's an okay grappler, but I rate Pantoja similarly, and honestly, over the course of 5 rounds, I do think Pantoja's cardio is going to shine through for him here as well. He's going to need to stay safe excuse me, in those striking exchanges. But I think outside of getting caught on the chin, this is Pantoja's fight to probably win and probably look good as well. So I'm on Alexandre Pantoja here. The line does feel a little bit ridiculous. I think he could win via submission or via decision. Probably not going to be chasing the knockout, and I think it only comes if he finds it like through attrition or through weaponizing his cardio. I like the overs here. I like Pantoja to win. Maybe a sprinkle on Pantoja by sub because I do think he's the much better grappler here. But fun matchup. And yeah, maybe Asakura gets new life down in a new weight class, but can't imagine that weight cut's going to be good for his cardio. So I'm on Pantoja.
Love it. Yeah, really just great matchups up and down this card. I'm really excited for this one. The co-main event here at welterweight, Shavkat Rakhmonov -400 facing Ian Gary, 3-1, the underdog. You spoke briefly on this fight, two undefeated fighters going head to head, and the winner of this one very likely next for the welterweight title, facing Bilal Muhammad in his return. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, the line's kind of disrespectful to Gary. At the same time, I do think Shavkat's the rightful side, just the more well-rounded fighter of the two. If this is 5 rounds of point kickboxing, then yes, I do give it to Gary. But Gary's style, I mean, it's more conducive to winning scorecards than it is to finding finishes and winning fights. Shavkat's durability has been excellent. While Gary obviously hasn't been finished, he hasn't lost. We have seen him rocked at times. He really hasn't taken on many grapplers of the level of a Shavkat Rakhmonov. So while both of these guys have been impressive, I just think Shavkat's more developed at this point in their respective careers. We do know that these guys have spent some time training before. They were former sparring partners. Shavkat allegedly got the better of him in that room on the ground. But on the feet, I think Gary's going to have his moments. It's just Gary doesn't seem to pull away in many of his fights. Fought a really good but close fight with MVP, good but close fight with Neal. Shavkat much more aggressive, and over the course of 5 rounds, we've seen him kind of come alive in those wars, in those battles, taking damage, moving forward. I think the pressure from Shavkat here is going to be unlike anything Gary's seen before. I do think Gary's live, and I do think the price is a little bit ridiculous, but at the same time, I mean, Shavkat, he took this fight for a reason. He pretty much had a title shot right there for him set up. He thinks he's got the better of Gary in this matchup, and I tend to agree. I think he's going to have to mix in his grappling. It's going to be close early, but as this fight gets into the later rounds, I do see Shavkat pulling away, weaponizing that cardio, mixing in the grappling, maybe finding submission, but more likely than not, just winning enough rounds to get this secured and get that title shot with Bilal that he was already once scheduled for. So I'm on Shavkat here. Don't love the price, but I do think he's the rightful favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of Shavkat. I really want to see him win the title at welterweight, but I got to go with Gary here in this matchup as a 3-1 betting underdog. When you just look at this fight, a 5-round fight here, obviously high stakes for both guys, and a very tough fight, honestly, for Rakhmonov compared to the guys that he has faced thus far. Gary presents a very different stylistic challenge when it comes to his striking ability, and I think the speed and distance control from Gary is going to provide a lot of problems for Shavkat here standing. Obviously, it's impressive what Rakhmonov is able to do on the feet. His spinning attacks, huge arsenal of strikes that he could draw on compared to Gary's more traditional boxing approach, while effective from both stances and throwing kicks. Just not nearly as unique in his attacks as Rakhmonov. But I think that consistency for Gary and his ability to just be a step quicker, get in and out quicker, and fight a smart fight against Rakhmonov is going to be his key to success here. Again, Rakhmonov super durable. I find it unlikely that Gary wins this fight inside the distance, and even winning rounds convincingly, I do think will be tough. I just see this fight going over, and Rakhmonov is somebody who, while he's certainly had the experience of going long fights before, this is his first time in the UFC ever going 5 rounds. Odds makers have the over-under set here at 3 rounds, making this the longest of Rakhmonov's career. Somebody who obviously needs that finish, or at least has gotten that finish in every single fight thus far. And I just really feel we're going to see these two over the course of 5 rounds duke it out, and grappling exchanges to a bit of a minimum. If that is going to be the case, I'd rather have Gary at 3-1 when the scorecards are being read, even if Shavkat is slightly more technical or ahead in a few of these rounds. I don't think he's going to rely on the grappling. He's only scored multiple takedowns in one of his UFC fights. Rakhmonov's a monster in the clinch, but he's denied that clinch in some fights already. Like Neil did a very good job keeping him out of that range where Rakhmonov could find success. And I think it could be more of the same here from Gary. So definitely more of a play on the number than my, gut feeling on this fight. But yeah, Gary's being disrespected in my eyes, an undefeated fighter at 3-1. I'm going to take my shot with him. And next up, the featured bout comes at heavyweight. This is a rematch of a fight in 2021 between Ciryl Gane and Alexander Volkov. Gane is minus 400 in this matchup against Volkov, who could be had at 3-1. That first matchup, pretty convincingly, Gane's fight, 50-45 on two of the judges' scorecards. He really barely outstruck Volkov based purely on the numbers, but he had great distance management there. He landed the more meaningful strikes. He really controlled that fight and didn't exert too much extra energy. It's weird to have a 3-round rematch here for a fight that we've already seen a full 5 rounds. Volkov has evolved a lot since that fight. He's really coming into his own over the course of these last 4 finishing guys. I think it's kind of a product of good matchmaking. And again, running into a technical striker like Gane, I'm not sure Volkov will find that much success. Kind of better value here second time around with only 3 rounds in which Gane's going to be able to work. But yeah, I think he's going to do his thing, bounce around, land slightly more strikes on Volkov and keep himself safe in this fight.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that they're remaking this fight. I mean, we saw it relatively recently. I think they're trying to get Gane another win, build some momentum for him, maybe get him back in line for a title shot against Aspinall if Jones retires or whatever. But I don't know. I think the line is disrespectful here. I mean, heavyweights tend to be volatile. Obviously, Volkov could catch Gane with something. I also think Volkov, if he chose to, could maybe mix in the wrestling and try to lead on that. At the same time, it's just not really his style. I have trouble expecting him to shoot these clean takedowns or anything like that. So I'm on Gane here. I think he gets it done probably via decision. Volkov definitely improving, but I mean, the Pavlovich performance, as impressive as it was, really came because Pavlovich has no real understanding of footwork. He just kind of crashes the pocket and gets picked apart that way. I mean, Gane's footwork is superior to Volkov. Not many fighters in the division can say that. So very good stylistic matchup for Ciryl Gane. I do think he gets it done. I also think the price is ridiculous, so maybe proceed with some caution. I like the over here. Usually heavyweight fights, something we could expect to go inside the distance. I see this one likely going to the scorecards again. Gane probably winning most of the rounds unless Volkov starts to mix in his grappling, in which case maybe you find a live entry if your book offers it. But for me, Ciryl Gane here, probably via decision. Don't love the price though.
Yeah, I think it's been 4 or 5 fights since Volkov has secured a takedown, but even just like clinching Gane against the cage could certainly make this a bit tighter than their first matchup. We'll look now at a fight on pay-per-view between Bryce Mitchell and Kron Gracie. This featherweight matchup, I mean, Mitchell last fought at UFC 296. We saw him brutally slapped by Josh Emmett. It's good that he's taken a year off since that matchup. And thankfully, power isn't really going to be an issue for him facing a guy in Kron Gracie when his last performance looked very bad, facing Charles Jourdain at UFC 288, flopping for his takedown attempts. Gotta expect somewhat of a better showing from him here, but honestly, the Gracie name is really not what it used to be. Over the past decade, you could say. Every time you've seen a Gracie, they're going in the octagon to collect a losing paycheck. But nonetheless, I think in grappling heavy fight, as Mitchell's tend to be, Gracie certainly could find some success against him. One would just think the far superior wrestler is going to keep top position and work from there in this fight. Mitchell's a guy who, yeah, it's really just high level strikers that he's had those problems with, and that's not the case here. Facing another grappler in Gracie. Dangerous to play down there with the guy, but I think Mitchell should be able to stay safe. And yeah, minus 900, crazy price to bet, but obviously the favorite.
Yeah, the price is stupid, honestly. I think Mitchell wins, but this is more of an IQ test for him than anything. And Mitchell, no flat earther, isn't exactly a guy you want to be betting on his IQ. Gracie looked terrible his last fight. He did talk about how he thought he really had to grapple there. Like there was all this talk from the Gracie camp about how he really had to show out on the mat. And for whatever reason, that kind of prevented him from striking at all. Jordan completely picked him apart. It's kind of insane he's back on a main card here. I mean, Swanson really brought it to Gracie. He showed he could take shots in the pocket and survive, but at the same time, I mean, Mitchell is going to be the better striker here. Mitchell, you mentioned his wrestling. I mean, he's strong. He's a pretty good wrestler, but at the same time, he does not want to spend too much time on the mat with Gracie. Gracie's jiu-jitsu, I know the Gracie name, whatever you want to say, like the sons and the grandsons and all, they haven't been great. But his jiu-jitsu was still levels above Bryce, in my opinion. I know Bryce is good, but in terms of technical ability, if he wants to play that game with him, it's not smart here. Just sprawl and brawl, keep the fight standing, pick Gracie apart on the feet, land the bigger shots. Mitchell has underrated power. These are all things I think he can do, just not things I want to bet on him doing at this price. So I think Mitchell gets it done, probably via decision. I think he's live for the KO, even though Gracie is super durable. But if this fight hits the mat, I mean, you're not going to want to be on a super juiced Bryce Mitchell ticket, even if he is a better wrestler, quote unquote, because Gracie can find success out of a lot of those positions. So I'm on Mitchell here. Probably not a spot you should be betting, though. Again, Mitchell in an IQ test, maybe not the fighter to be backing, but yeah, Gracie's just I don't know. He's a great jiu-jitsu player, really not a true MMA fighter, in my opinion.
All right. Well, prior to that one, a bit more exciting of a matchup at featherweight. This between Nate Landwehr and Dooho Choi. Landwehr minus 135, the betting favorite here against Choi, who could be had plus 115. I am very much expecting fireworks in this matchup. Landwehr having a fight of the night bonus and three performance bonuses to his credit, including in his last fight, while Choi has three fight of the night bonuses in his UFC tenure and two performance bonuses. Definitely should be a banger, as is every fight from Nate the Train. You know he's going to get right after it, putting pressure in the face of Dooho Choi here. Choi, a bit more technically sound when it comes to his striking, so certainly could have the edge, landing those counters on Landwehr as he moves towards him. But really, it should devolve into a brawl. One would think that Landwehr wins out in a lot of these dogfights, and it seems to be trending towards the style fight where we've seen him find success in the past. I also feel like if it is a super high volume fight, he's going to be the one with better cardio in rounds 2 and 3, as is also often the case. So, as a very slight betting favorite, I do favor Landwehr in this matchup. But this is more one that I'm excited to watch than one I'm excited to bet on. Perhaps looking at an underbet, but that's going to be paying some juice as well. Not really something I want to do here with the main card opener.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. And this is a tough one to call because of the style of these two fighters. They're both very much kill or be killed. Landwehr has shown that he can take damage from superior strikers in terms of technical ability and turn it around. At the same time, it's not like he has the most solid shin. So Choi's going to be super dangerous early here. I think if Landwehr were to choose to mix in his grappling, that actually present a clearer path to victory. But that's just not Landwehr's style. I mean, he's the train for a reason. He's going to come forward. He's going to take damage. He's an absolute psycho in there. I mean, Choi is very similar in a lot of ways. He's kind of had mixed success. I mean, somewhat inconsistent, mostly because he did have to spend time away during his athletic prime with the Korean military. But he's back. I mean, he looked really good against Algio. Pretty big underdog in that fight. Fought off of that long layoff in a pretty competitive fight with Nelson that's actually aged pretty well. But you know me, I'm a huge Nate Landwehr guy. Super biased. I do think he's probably going to be able to weather that early storm and get it done. But Choi is very live for an early finish. So I think if you're backing Choi, you're probably going to be looking for that early window to find the KO. And as the fight wears into the second and third round, Landwehr should be able to start to turn it around and weaponize that cardio. I'd rather probably take inside the distance than back either fighter here. But I do prefer the Nature Train side. I just think he's shown considerable improvement even at 36 years old, which is kind of old for the division. Choi, he's not this young prospect anymore, though. I think we kind of know what we're getting with him. Both these guys very live for the KO. I just think it's more likely that we see it late from Landwehr than we do early from Choi. But definitely a fight I have circle as much watch, much CTV.
Yeah, that's going to be an awesome one to kick off the pay-per-view. All right, we're looking now at the light heavyweight division. Dominick Reyes, minus 380, the betting favorite here against Anthony Lionheart Smith, plus 270. Good piece of matchmaking. This is a fight certainly would have carried a bit more weight maybe 3 or 4 years ago as these two were circling the title picture at light heavyweight. Kind of now, age 36, Anthony Smith, age 34, Dominick Reyes, getting toward the latter half of their careers. Smith, obviously not the best showings as of late, and not somebody I really see threatening Reyes to a great degree in this fight. Reyes won by KO in his last appearance, stopping Justin Jacoby. Looked really good. His chin has proven suspect over these past couple, losses, but Smith is not known for, crippling power. He's more of a guy that sits behind his jab, uses that to his advantage, and obviously great high-level jiu-jitsu, more so than a lot of these guys at 205 pounds, and certainly would have the edge over Reyes if he's able to get this fight to the mat, but I think that's going to be difficult. Reyes just big, powerful. I think he's going to be spamming a lot of kicks to the body of Smith, kicking to the legs. He's great at connecting from range. Only listed an inch reach advantage over Anthony Smith, but that's going to be pronounced more in the leg reach. Yeah, I think those big, powerful strikes from Reyes should be able to connect early and get Smith out of there, a guy that we have seen finished, on quite a few occasions before. I think he could challenge Reyes in this matchup, and I'm definitely not going to bet Reyes at this number. I mean, just really can't trust the guy. But it seems like another uh, case where he can rely on his striking, as was the case against Dustin Jacoby, and he can find that success against Anthony Smith. So going with Reyes, what are your thoughts?
I mean, Reyes is such a good fighter in terms of his athletic ability, his technical striking, ability to manage distance, underrated wrestler as well. When he has trouble, it's against these guys that are power punchers, against guys that can put him away. John Jones fight, he arguably won. I mean, Jones has power. He's not really known for it though. But Ryan Spawn, as mediocre as he is, and then Jiří Procházka, Jan Blachowicz, both former champs, super powerful. Two of the more powerful strikers in the division. What we're getting here is Anthony Smith, really not that powerful of a striker. I mean, if Smith has any path to victory, maybe it's a timely guillotine like we saw against Vitor Petrino. Definitely isn't a jiu-jitsu advantage here, but I think in terms of athletic ability, Reyes's strength and size should allow him to win wrestling scrambles if he needs to. On the feet, I mean, Smith is just slow. I mean, he's always been kind of slow, but Reyes, as mediocre as he is, he's still quick. He's still good at getting in and out of range. And even if he gets caught by Smith, again, this isn't some super powerful puncher. So I think Reyes gets it done. I actually am pretty confident here, even though Reyes is so inconsistent, because when you look at the raw losses, other than the John Jones loss, obviously against one of the greatest of all time, it's against super powerful strikers. And yeah, he was in the pocket with Spawn. I mean, I like all that I'm hearing from Reyes in media this week. This is a guy who was kind of delusional at times earlier in his career. He finally seems to have his head on his shoulder where it belongs. He knows where he stands in the division. He knows he's still a few fights away from even considering a title shot. He knows what he's up against here. So I like Reyes. It's tough to be confident in him, but I kind of am here. I think he gets it done. Maybe not inside the distance because I do think he fights smart. As much as Smith has declined in ability. I mean, his durability is still pretty solid. So I like Reyes here. I actually think the decision might be the better value than the inside the distance, but either way, I do see Reyes as the rightful favorite.
All right, with you on that one. Here's for this next one, a matchup at welterweight between Themba Gorimbo and Vincente Luque. Gorimbo minus 170, the betting favorite here against the veteran Vicente Luque. Luque was scheduled for a fight with Nick Diaz here on this card, but now draws Gorimbo instead. A bit of a home game for him, training primarily in Las Vegas as Themba Gorimbo, staying very active too. Both men are 33 years old, but Gorimbo obviously a bit younger in terms of his MMA career. Um, I certainly rate his chin better than that of Luque, and if this is going to be a high volume striking affair, he could end up winning out late. However, Luque's boxing is super high level, super crisp in the pocket. If Gorimbo is going to engage him very close, I could see him getting clipped and knocked out in this fight. Certainly, Luque's power is more about cumulative damage and landing great combination strikes. But if Gorimbo is going to play in that range with him, it certainly is going to be could spell trouble. Gorimbo utilizing grappling to a great extent in these recent fights, so I could see him, shooting a timely takedown here or there just to mix things up against a bit of a more potent striker. But yeah, that's the best part about Gorimbo, honestly. He's very cerebral, mixes it up a lot, whether it be from striking to grappling or into the clinch. Just wherever he feels he has the advantage over his opponent, you normally see him make an effort to get there and put forth great effort every time the fight hits the latter half. Luque at times, we've seen him fade. We've also seen him again just deal with a lot of strikes to the head over the course of his career. And if Gorimbo is able to put together a couple clean punches, could spell trouble for him. So I lean the way of Gorimbo. I think this line is about where it should be. Luque, of course, a live underdog given his hands, but it's going to be Gorimbo for me this weekend.
This line is insane to me. It's absolutely wrong. I think it should be flipped. I think Luque, in spite of his age, in spite of the injuries, is one of the better underdog plays I've seen on a card in a while. I'm super bullish on Luque here. I've never been high on Gorimbo. He's a nice story. I like that he has the backing of The Rock, and I don't know, UFC really wants to put their marketing behind him. But even in his wins, like I haven't been super impressive. He's taken out Sato and Rodriguez, two guys who were never UFC level. The Brahimaj fight he made as boring as possible, just kind of draped his body over him. Same with Nico Price, and he did not look great on the fight, on the feet against Nico Price, who's way up there in age. I just think Luque is better everywhere. Like I don't think Gorimbo's going to be able to hold him down. Bilal Muhammad found takedowns. Luque was still able to work back to his feet at times. Luque outgrappled RDA, albeit RDA is small for the division, but I mean, you just look at the two resumes, and even with Luque struggling against Buckley, Buckley's power is absolutely insane. Just knocked out Wonderboy Thompson. I mean, he's top five now. Like that's aging fine. Um, and yeah, I mean, Jeff Neal is Jeff Neal. Like these guys are fighting almost in two different divisions. Like we look at the guys that Gorimbo's been fighting compared to Luque. It's been a long time since there's any, I don't know, fighter on Gorimbo's level that Luque's taken on. So not to mention Grimbo taking this fight on short notice. It's a huge step up in competition, more so than I think he's going to understand. I think Luque could find a choke here. I think Grimbo maybe shoots a takedown. And while he does have tons of physical advantages in this fight, technically I don't think they're there at all. I think Luque can find submissions in the clinch. He could find submissions on Gorimbo takedowns. He could find takedowns of his own. He's the better striker. So outside of getting caught by a big Gorimbo shot, and he does have some power, but he kind of telegraphs it. I think Luque has him covered everywhere here. I am baffled by the line. I think people are just looking at the recent wins and losses and going off that. And yeah, I'm all over Luque here. One of my favorite underdogs, certainly of the week, if not of the past few months.
I mean, again, a camp training for Nick Diaz is going to be different than drawing into Gorimbo on short notice. I think that could perhaps be a reason for the line. Certainly see your point on that one. Curious to hear your thoughts on this next one. Movsar Evioev, minus 250, the betting favorite here against Aljamain Sterling. Evioev undefeated and in his pursuit for a featherweight title shot. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, this one's tough. And honestly, I've kind of had my side on all the fights we've talked about so far. This is one where I'll use to plug the Saturday article. Not 100% decided. I think the value certainly on Sterling. I mean, he is a great wrestler. Evloev's going to be willing to engage in that game with him here. But at the same time, on the feet, Evloev is definitely the better striker by a considerable margin. Evloev has excellent durability, as we've seen as recently as the Arnold Allen fight. Can take a shot, keep moving forward. He's going to be the bigger fighter here, with Aljo having recently moved up a weight class as well. But yeah, all that being said, it's not going to surprise me to see Aljo score a takedown or two, maybe find a body triangle and win a round or win 2 rounds and just make it boring and do what he does and win the fight that way. At the same time, I mean, Evloev should have the quality enough takedown defense to mostly keep this fight standing where he is going to have an advantage. But his kind of low volume style kind of keeps fights against lower level opponents closer than they need to be. And Sterling isn't really a lower level opponent by any stretch. So I like Evloev here slightly. I think the value is on the Sterling side, though, and I'm not 100% decided on this. I'll watch weigh-ins. I want to spend a little bit more time watching film on these guys. I watched the recent fights, but it's tough to really know what to get from Sterling here. It's been a while since he's fought a true wrestler. I mean, other than Cejudo, but he had such a size advantage there that he's not going to have here. That was a close fight. I think if you're backing Evloev, that's kind of a fight that's probably ringing in your ears. So I'm on Evloev slightly because I did just recently watch that matchup. But I want to run it back. I want to look for certain things. Maybe I can find my way to a Sterling pick because the price on him is super disrespectful. Yeah, I don't mind a Sterling shot as a dog. I have to go Evloev though, just a bigger fighter, more well-rounded game.
Yeah, I find myself the exact same spot as you. Getting 2-1 on Sterling is certainly enticing in a fight that's almost minus 400 to go the distance. I mean, Evloev doesn't win rounds the most convincingly, and one would think that he is going to try and strike as many minutes as he can against Aljamain Sterling. At least that's what you would hope for if you are betting on him. And I would prefer to put my money on the undefeated fighter staying undefeated. But yeah, it's exactly going to be that case whether Sterling can win 2 rounds in this fight, given his grappling. Again, with Evloev just a step quicker, and his close range striking weapons are just so much more potent than Sterling's. He should have the confidence to, hold his ground, land shots on Sterling in the pocket. It's just going to be a matter of if he does or does not. Sterling, if he is shooting, Evloev will only be tasked with counter wrestling instead of initiating shots of his own. So it really should play to his advantage here, and one thing would think he gets the win. It's just going to matter what the judges see. And again, if you think Sterling's a boring fighter, Evloev is about as bad as it gets with decisions in every UFC fight. So, yeah, very tough matchup. I'm leaning the way of Evloev as well, but again, getting Sterling at 2-1 certainly cannot fault anyone for taking that underdog shot. All right, we were looking now at a very fun matchup at welterweight between Bryan Battle and Randy Brown. Bryan Battle minus 220, the betting favorite here against Brown in this spot. I think this betting line is again a touch too wide, but I do prefer Battle in this matchup. The one that he's been on, obviously adding more tools to his arsenal with each camp, but certainly establishing himself as a potent finisher here at welterweight, somebody who is aggressive, urgent to take control early in his fights. Whereas Brown, on the other hand, often is too content to pick and prod from distance, using his long range weapons. He has great length for the welterweight division, but again, facing a guy like Battle, who's not afraid to close the pocket or knows how to effectively get into striking range, without taking shots in return. I think that's going to be an issue for Brown, who again is going to look to use more kicks and long range jabs to engage with Battle here in the early going. Battle that win against Kevin Jousset, again, just a performance in which he's able to showcase his hands are that much better than a lot of these guys, and just the attacks that we've seen Battle throw as he continues to train and continue to build in this weight division. I really like what I've seen out of him. Again, that being said, Brown is a good fighter, and in a fight largely going to be contested at kickboxing range. He's going to be a live dog. I just do slightly prefer Battle, even though I might not get to the window with him as much this week, weighing minus 220. I've already made a fair share of money betting Bryan Battle before, so I'll ride with him here.
Yeah, this is another fight where I agree with the favorite. I just don't agree with the price necessarily. I mean, I've bet on Battle, I think, in most of his fights since he was won the Ultimate Fighter, and he's been paying us well for sure. If we were betting on aura and swagger, he'd definitely be the pick here. The thing is, Randy Brown's super underrated because he doesn't really have that aura or that swagger. I mean, this is a guy who fights while moving backwards. He's a counter fighter. His volume on paper looks pretty solid, but it comes in bunches. So there are times in his fights where it's kind of dull. You're kind of waiting. And if you look at his last five opponents, like the combined age of these guys is pretty insane. I mean, last wins at least, because he fought Della Maddalena, he fought Wellington Turman, who's young, but Salikov, Zaleski, Trinaldo, um, he's getting a different kind of thing here against Bryan Battle. I do think Brown's the better technical striker. I think if he can make this boring for 15 minutes, he's probably going to squeak it out on the scorecards, similar to what we see from Brown against Salikov, against Zaleski. But at the same time, Battle just has this ability to take shots, keep coming forward. Doucette was tagging him up a little bit early in that fight, but he just grinned, bared it, fought through it, and found the finish of his own. I mean, more than he's this technical savant, I just think him up at this weight class, it's dangerous. He's got more power than a lot of the guys that Brown's been competing with, and we saw someone with power in Della Maddalena take Brown out. So yeah, I think we could see something similar here, but again, the price does feel a little bit insane. I thought this should be closer to a pick 'em. I do have a gut feeling that Battle gets it done, but at the same time, I mean, this price is really tough to want to back him at just because Brown is so technically solid, is a really good striker, has a lot of the similar strengths that Battle does. So yeah, I'm on Battle here. Definitely a fan of his. Hope he keeps winning, gets into the rankings, all that good stuff. But at this price, I mean, you can't feel great about it, honestly. You're on mute. You're on mute.
All right, we will move on now to the early prelims. Looking at this fight between Erik Anders and Chris Weidman. We broke this fight down already for UFC 309, but unfortunately, Anders fell ill prior to the event. This fight today, Saturday, contested at 195 pounds, might be the final walk for longtime veteran Chris Weidman. The former middleweight champion, still fighting here at 40 and actually winning in his last octagon appearance, but a very controversial one against Bruno Silva. Numerous eye pokes, fouls in that fight. Really looking abysmal overall, moving slow, but doing just enough to come away with that victory. Um, Anders more explosive, more athletic, a good base that should allow him to keep this fight standing against Weidman, who will likely be looking to shoot. Anders has defended 79% of opponent takedowns, and yeah, a southpaw striker with much quicker hands than Chris Weidman. I think he should be able to put forth good energy, landing big blows on Weidman and keeping this fight standing for as long as it does last. One note on this fight, when it went off at UFC 309, Anders was like a minus 180 betting favorite. Right now, you could get him at Pick'em. I'm taking him again, and at Pick'em now, I probably will end up betting Erik Anders. That wasn't the case at minus 180, but now at even odds, I think in this fight against Chris Weidman, I do like his chances. A bit weird he fell ill, and he was the reason that last fight got scrapped. But yeah, I do think he gets the W here today.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the Weidman side last time. I'm on it again, honestly. I mean, Anders is the one who got sick. He's the one who had issues going into the fight. Weidman was pissed. He was ready to go. And while both these guys are old and they both should be retiring, Anders is the one talking about retiring. Weidman, I mean, he's a little bit delusional, but most fighters, you kind of have to be a little bit delusional. Anders has some power, but you look at the guy, you think he'd have a lot more. I mean, Weidman has been pretty durable over his past few fights, so I'm backing Weidman here. I think he could mix in the takedowns if he needs to. I think he's going to land more volume on the feet. And yeah, I mean, no, this fight isn't in New York, but he's still going to have the crowd behind him. He's definitely more of a fan favorite than Anders, who's been kind of perennial disappointment. Um, yeah, I mean, Anders. I don't know. I just don't like the intangibles right now. Fight against Jamie Pickett, who really isn't UFC level, was way too close. Um, and again, he's the one who had to have the fight canceled. He's the one who's talking about retirement. Not that Weidman should keep going, but Yeah, it's enough for me to like Weidman here. I don't love the movement on the line because there was great value last time, especially with the fight being in New York, especially now knowing that Honor's may have been sick going into it. But I don't know. If he's having second thoughts, if he gets into the cage, I do favor Weidman, who I at least know wants to be there. Um, Again, going to be a low volume striking fight. Honors does his best work usually up against the cage. Weidman, well, maybe he's not going to be wrestling aggressively. He does have great cage control and the ability to kind of circle off when he needs to. So that's enough for me to back Weidman here. But probably a fight you shouldn't really be betting either way. Just two very old fighters, definitely declined in their abilities. But yeah, I'll side with Weidman.
All right. We'll move on now to this flyweight matchup between Joshua Van and Cody Durden. Van minus 155, the betting favorite here against Durden, who could be had plus 130. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, this one's tough fight to call. I mean, it's very binary in that Van's the better striker, Durden definitely the better wrestler. Van kind of a slow starter, Durden kind of a fast starter that fades. So I mean, we have two vehicles kind of headed in opposite directions. It's like, what's going to happen in the middle? I don't know. I think Durden's very live for the upset here if he can get his wrestling going. Van, while he does have decent get up ability, he has been taken down plenty of times. We've seen it, but at the same time, I mean, Durden seems to be falling in love with his hands, which is not great for a matchup like this one. Just standing in the pocket with Matt Schnell, trading shots. Bruno Silva, a fight he was doing great until he got caught because he was spending too much time on the feet in a firefight. I don't know. I want to take Durden as a dog, but I think I end up on the Van side here. I think Durden looks good until he doesn't, and that's often the case in Durden's losses. He's always competitive. He usually has a wrestling advantage, but again, just a guy who's falling in love with his hands, and we've seen it throughout the years. This is an issue. Wrestling is a great advantage at every level, every division, but when you start to give that up because you get a few KOs, you go away from what got you there in the first place. And I kind of have that concern with Durden right now. Another fight I want to spend a little bit more time on. I do think Van probably gets it done, though, in a fight that primarily takes place on the feet. But if Durden's smart, it won't. And if Durden's smart, he's very live as an underdog. But I'm on Van for now.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough fight to call, one that I'm not really totally sold on yet. I'm kind of leaning the way of Durden getting plus money here. I mean, if you got the American wrestling tattoo on your body, you gotta wrestle. Even though he hasn't done it to a great extent lately, we've seen Van really struggle put on his back before. And yeah, as you highlight, grappler versus striker. If Durden is able to put him there, I really see Van struggling to get up in rounds of this fight. So it will be on him to fight back to his feet, land the strikes on Durden, and keep more distance. As a southpaw fighter, Durden should have easier access to the legs of Joshua Van. Yeah, again, the high volume striking from Van also leaves him open to more single leg attempts as he tries to draw out 4 or 5 punch combinations into much longer ones. If Durden's able to fight through that chaos, fight through those heavy number of strikes, then he certainly is a live underdog in this spot and definitely a tempting one. But of course, check out our article on Saturday for a official pick on that one, as I could still very much wind up on the favorite side, as we draw closer to this fight. All right, another very tough fight to call here at welterweight. This fight dead even pick'em between Max Griffin and Michael Chiesa. Um, Similar in regards to this being a grappler versus striker matchup, as that's really always the case when it comes to Mike Chiesa fights. Very high level grappler. We saw him able to get the win in his last fight out there against Tony Ferguson. But Chiesa, just regardless of opponent, he's going to be decisive in his takedown attempts, looking for the body lock most often, dragging opponents down to the mat, and then doing his work from there. Obviously, very high level in his jiu-jitsu is Michael Chiesa. Averaging 3.3 takedowns landed per 15 minutes, so a better rate than one per round. And if he's going to continue to test a guy like Griffin over and over in this fight, he certainly will have his moments, and we will see a few grappling exchanges. Griffin, over the course of his UFC career, has defended 68% of his opponent's takedown attempts. Chiesa, a bit of a bigger guy, and somebody who, again, should be able to get in on the body lock here once or twice. I think that gives a slight edge, in my eyes, to Chiesa. Somebody who was a bit hesitant to back in his last outing, but after seeing him go out and get the job done the right way, I feel a bit better about him here. Again, somebody who's just a step lower in competition, and I view Max Griffin. Well, while Griffin's dangerous with his hands, again, I think as he crashes the distance, looks to hit Chiesa, he's going to get wrapped up on a few occasions here. So give me Chiesa in this pick'em fight.
Yeah, I'm with you. Again, another fight between two kind of aging vets, so there's some volatility there just for that alone. Another binary matchup, which adds volatility. Chiesa, the grappler, like you said, Griffin more of a striker. But yeah, I think kind of similar to some of the other fights we're talking about. I think was it Evlo? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Really, Griffin just doesn't have the power, I think, to make things easy for himself. Chiesa, while he's not a good striker, especially defensively, he's super durable. He's going to be able to take most of what Griffin's going to be able to throw at him. And then, I mean, Griffin's grappling just isn't good. We saw Tim Means take him down. He was taken down by Magny, someone who Chiesa completely dominated on the mat. So not to play too much MMA math here, but I think Chiesa should be able to close the distance, find at least a takedown or two, which should be enough for him to win this on the scorecards. If not, find a submission. He's just a better grappler here by such a wide margin that on the feet, I'm expecting Griffin to win the moments. I'm expecting him to tag him up a little bit. Chiesa probably looks a little bit battered at the end of this if he can't get it done early, but yeah, on the mat, I just think that that gap's even wider. So I'm going to go with the grappler here in Chiesa. Again, not a fighter at this point in his career you want to be backing with too much money. But I do think stylistically, this is another favorable matchup for him. And the UFC continues to do him favors. Yeah, coming off the Ferguson fight, which is everyone's dream fight right now. Going to build a little bit of momentum here until they throw him to a prospect and they say, we did you a few favors. Now it's time for you to do one for us. But I like Chiesa here. I think he gets it done.
Okay. Next up, we'll look at this matchup at lightweight between Chase Hooper and Clay Guida. Chase Hooper, the minus 1,300 betting favorite against Guida, who could be had at 7-1. These two have engaged in a grappling match before, but now fighting in MMA. Certainly, Hooper is the rightful favorite. 25 years old, entering his athletic prime, looking better and better with each fight, like a fine wine, is Chase Hooper. That last showing against Vyacheslav Borishev was honestly jaw-dropping. I love Chase Hooper. I'm a huge fan, but to see him do that, piecing him up, landing, 200 significant strikes in that fight. I mean, Chase Hooper was on a roll, and here facing Guida, I don't see him finding really much adversity in this spot. Well, Guida is obviously a very good wrestler and somebody who will look to close the distance here facing a much taller and longer opponent. Hooper's elite with his grappling. If he gets taken down, if he gets on bottom position underneath Clay Guida, I don't see him spending very much time there. He's 6'1" compared to the 5'7" Clay Guida, and yeah, Guida, age 42. He has a motor that seems to just keep going, but I don't see Hooper getting tired in this fight. I don't see Hooper eating a big strike in this fight, and I don't see him getting out wrestled. So it certainly should be Chase Hooper's night here. Whether he gets a finish or not, it's kind of tough to say against a guy like Clay Guida, and given some of the Hooper performances we've seen in the past, a bit of a mixed bag. But yeah, given his tools, given his newfound striking ability, one would think he cruises in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, stylistically, isn't a great fight for Guida at this point in his career. I mean, if this exact fight took place a couple of years ago, I think Guida would be pretty live as an underdog. But Hooper's kind of grown into his body. I think he's a little bit too young to be calling him fine wine. But at the same time, I mean, Guida at this point starting to age like milk in some respects. Guida, when he fought against Chase, suffered a calf slicer. Finished via calf slicer there. We go and we look at Guida's record. I believe that was the same submission Claudio Puelles rolled for and immediately found on him. Let's see.
Puel's hit a
It
knee
was a knee bar.
bar that I get for
Yeah, so I
$1,000.
mean, either way, you just roll out his legs, and I think Hooper's going to find a submission. period. You can't. Guida's a good wrestler, but it almost works to his detriment in a matchup like this because he's probably going to be willing to go to the mat. And yeah, Hooper doesn't even need a pure takedown to get this fight where he wants it. He's going to be throwing out way more volume on the feet. Guida probably lands a good counter, could even drop Chase, but like I don't know, Charles Oliveira style, just pull him into your guard and finish him there. I think as soon as this fight hits the mat, Chase is going to do whatever he wants. Guida's only recent wins have come against other really old fighters in Santos and Holtzman, who are both on near retirement in those matchups. Hooper's on the other end of that timeline. Yeah, just a weird matchup. It is going to build Chase's name a little bit. On the feet, I mean, Guido will be competitive, but I don't think this stays on the feet. I like Hooper to win. I like Hooper inside the distance. I like Hooper by submission. Um, yeah, if it's not a knee bar or a calf slicer, I'd be surprised. I just think you Imanari it immediately, and the fight should be over.
And I had 50-1 on that Puellas knee bar, so maybe
Yeah, shouts out
maybe
to
look
you.
at that. Maybe look at that prop this week too with good old Chase Hooper. No, I like it. All right, and the prelim opener we have here kicking off the card at 6, Kennedy and Cheziku -600, the favorite here facing Lucas Bresky, who could be had at 4-1. This is another short notice booking. Bresky originally scheduled to face Taliesin Teixeira here in this fight. Teixeira, an undefeated Brazilian prospect. So Bresky probably the B side of that matchup. And yeah, Kennedy here stepping in on short notice, weeks after stopping Chris Barnett in impressive fashion. He's somebody with quick hands, good at early action in his fights, somebody with a distinctive size advantage over most heavyweights, or not all heavyweights. But now fighting at heavyweight, another opponent who isn't really built for, the full 265. Bresky weighing in last 235 pounds, where Kennedy does certainly fit the build of a heavyweight, despite finding some success at light heavyweight before. 6'5", taller than Bresky and with a 5-inch reach advantage. Fighting out of the southpaw stance as well, landing cleaner, crisp strikes on Bresky should be the key to success here for in Cheziku. Bresky, a bit of a wild card, somebody who really hasn't found very much sustained success in the octagon, largely due to his striking defense, just eating a lot of shots. Very difficult for him to get his offense going, and I think that'll likely be the case again here, facing Kennedy and Cheziku. He's just somebody who you really don't want to bet at -600 unless he's facing a guy like Chris Barnett. So I probably will have some money on Kennedy to start out the night, but certainly not one I'm super confident in. -600 and on short notice.
Yeah, I don't know. Kennedy's so inconsistent. He's tough to back as a big favorite, like you said. I do like to move up to heavyweight for him, though, just because heavyweight's so terrible. Once you're outside the top 10, I mean, the matchups are relatively easy. Kennedy actually has a path to win via grappling here if he wants to do it. We saw it against Carl Roberson, moments in the Kudalaba fight. Like, it's something he has in his bag that he could lean on if he chooses to. Walter Walker was a huge favorite against Bresky, never got his wrestling going, and it cost him. I don't know. I think Kennedy's the better striker here, leagues ahead of Walter Walker. But if he wants to, I mean, Bresky's not some great defensive grappler. 36% takedown defense in the UFC. A lot of that's because of that Carl Williams fight. But really, I mean, Kennedy just off athleticism should be able to take him down. Gonna have a power advantage too. I mean, Bresky just doesn't have much power as far as heavyweights are concerned. So I do think Kennedy checks all the boxes you need to back him here as a favorite, except for the price. Again, heavyweight fights tend to be volatile. Never somewhere you want to be spending too much money on a favorite. And yeah, I think Kennedy gets it done probably inside the distance. But at the same time, just proceed with caution. This is relatively low level. While I'd like to move up for Kennedy, he hasn't proven much yet at heavyweight, with just that win over Chris Barnett. You're on mute.
All right, well, it should be a very fun card here this Saturday. Again, UFC 310, live from Las Vegas. Nick, as always, thank you for breaking down these fights with me. Be sure to check out our full write-up and prediction come Saturday on Dine Sports. We thank you all for watching.
Take care, everyone.